They have to say mutalach, like similar to like we say by Natarat Nidarim, mutalach, or some language of mutalach. You're off. You know, this thing that you're released from this nidui, from this excommunication ban. And our Gemara said, what our Gemara said was that even if the ban was made on a condition, nidui al tanai, sarach hafara, the Gemara says on 11b, on top of the page, that even though you gave a condition that you said that, you know what, you're going to be placed in this excommunication if depending on someone such and such a thing, and a conditional. So even if that condition wasn't met, you said, you know, you're going to be, let's say the case is Yehud, the Gemara uses an example of Yehuda. Yehuda put himself, he said about himself that he will be excommunicated, he will be in Nidui, because he says, V'chatati la'avi kol hayamim, I will have sinned to my father all my days. Kol hayamim, all a person's days means this world and the next world. But the person lives not only in this world, next world also. He says, I will have sinned to my father if I don't bring back Binyamin. When Yehuda says, and he gets up to the plate and he says, I will take responsibility, as we all remember, Yosef did not identify himself yet, and he took Shimon, he locked up Shimon, and he told the brothers, you got to go back home, you got to bring me Binyamin. You're speaking, you have a younger brother? I think you guys are spies. I think you're making up a story. Yosef says, you know how I'll know that you're spies? If you go home and you bring back this young boy that your youngest brother that you spoke about, which was Binyamin. And Yaakov did not want to let Binyamin go. But as the food started running out, Yehuda told Yaakov, we could have been back already. And he said, I'll take responsibility. I'll take responsibility for Binyamin. And if I don't bring him back, I will have sinned to you, kol hayamim. And the Gemara understands when he says, I will have sinned to you, what is he saying? I have sinned to you. I will be, so to speak, in this excommunication ban. I will have the ban of excommunication will apply to me in some sort of fashion. I will be, and the Gemara says that it came to fruition that Yehuda, after he passed away, his bones weren't comfortable. His bones in the coffin, Yehuda's bones were moving around, dislodging from its place. And we're going to learn more about the ban that went on to Yehuda until Moshe Rabbeinu had to remove that excommunication. A fascinating Gemara that we're going to learn about today. Even though Yehuda actually brought Yosef, he brought Binyamin back. So the ban was conditioned if I don't bring him back. If I don't bring the man back, so what did he do wrong? And yet, even though he brought him back, and the condition that he obligated himself to the ban wasn't met because he didn't violate he brought him back. Nevertheless, the ban takes effect until it's removed. That's what the Gemara says. So what did he do wrong? So some Tosfos says that what's unique, that other type of banning, which was conditional, will not take effect when you have the ability to control the outcome of your condition. But this type of condition that Yehuda took upon himself, where he says, if I don't bring him back, I will be banned, he didn't have the power to bring him back. Because what happens if something happens to Binyamin on the road? What happens if Yosef is not going to let Binyamin come back? So that type of Moreh Akiva, talking about back, welcome back. But to see, so that type of condition where it's not in your hand to your control, there are many things in life that are in the person's control. I control whether I say the right thing, do the right thing, that's in my control. I can't control the other guy. I can't control what the other person, I can encourage and try my best. But you can't control whether Binyamin is coming back with you. That's not in your control. So that type of condition is a weak type of condition. And that type of condition would still, the ban would still take effect when you create a condition which is not in your hands to, that's how Tosfos, Mr. Haber, that's how Tosfos understands why it makes a difference between this type of condition and other types of condition. If a guy says that, you know what, why do he make such a condition? If he's going to be banned anyways, that's your question, right, Mr. Haber? So I would say Yehuda did not know this law. Meaning to say he was under the impression, but all of us, morning, good to see you. Thank you for joining. Don't forget to say Birkat Torah first. What? Very good, beautiful. You was under the impression that if you make a condition, well, you know from the thing, 11b. He's made a condition. He thought that as long as I don't violate the condition, it won't come to fruition. The ban won't come to take place. Which we said yesterday also was the story of, right here, he was so confident and he thought, and he did bring him back, but yet he didn't realize that once you say you're gonna put yourself in excommunication, even though you made a condition, you need a release of that statement. And I wanted to say that was similar to Eli, that we see yesterday, we had in yesterday's Gemara also, that Eli, the Kohen Gadol, he had said a curse. If Shmuel will not tell him what Shmuel needs to tell him, Shmuel will be cursed. And Shmuel had a certain prophecy that he heard, and Eli said that you have to tell me what it was. And the Gemara says that even though Shmuel followed, and it did exactly what Eli asked for, but the fact that a chacham gives a curse, even though it was conditioned, the curse has some effect. That morning, Ariel. That's what we said, and I presume Eli obviously did not know. Eli did not know. Eli thought if I gave a condition, as long as you'll tell me, the curse won't take effect, right? That was, but he didn't realize that that's the power of a curse. That even if it's conditioned, but if a chacham says, Reuven, you Shmuel will be cursed, even though it's dependent on something else, it has an effect. That's what the Gemara said yesterday. But I think in the Aruch HaShulchan, and Rabbi Mansour used to give shir on Aruch HaShulchan. Aruch HaShulchan is a great sefer on the Shulchan Aruch, and he writes some of the details of these laws of menudeh, of excommunication ban. The idea, this is a thing that there's Rambam, there's Halacha, there's Shulchan Aruch on this, putting a person in this nidui, excommunicating an individual. The Rambam is fascinating. The Rambam lists maybe 24 things, 24 offenses that we would put this guy in this ban. And what does this ban, the Rambam talks about, some of the things are, if a person has a bad dog, a wild dog, a dangerous dog, or a bad ladder in his house that people could fall, or, and we're going to see, person was warned and he didn't follow the warning, then the court will do, and you have to stay social distancing from such a guy. You can't stay within his Dalet Amot, you can't count them into a minyan, can't count them into a zimun. Very serious ramifications of it. We'll have to say you can't marry a guy, but we'll have to see about what about if you have to see if you can't, if you have to see if you're allowed to talk to him or not. We'll have to see what there's also the Rambam, there's two types, there's different levels of the ban. There's someone called a nidui and there's someone called a cherem. Cherem is a higher level ban. And we'll see the Rambam. So I found it fascinating how the Aruch HaShulchan, he lived about 100 years ago, He opens up by saying, Dina de Machuta Dina Zel Klal Gadol. The law of the country is the law. It's a very big rule in Judaism. That if the country has certain laws, now not when the law violates the Jewish law. When the law violates Jewish law, then it's a different story. But when the laws of the country, they have a certain, for instance, I would say like this. The law says you're supposed to, you can't drive while intoxicated. That's the law of the country, right? That's not against our law. We also would agree you're not supposed to drive intoxicated. You're putting yourself in danger. So technically, it's a violation of the country's law if you drive while intoxicated. So that's a law you're supposed to follow. It's a law of the country you're supposed to follow. It has power. We have to recognize the laws of the country as long as it's not against our laws. So he says, now he says the law the Caesar or the Tsar says that we're not allowed to put a person in excommunication throughout Europe. He says the Tsar says throughout Europe, in the Muslim countries, in Persia, Morocco, there the government allows us to put people in excommunication. But here, they don't allow us to put people to put this ban on an individual. Therefore, all the laws that we're going to explain. Now, he was very careful. The censors, there were people that were going over the Jewish books to see, you could get yourself in trouble. And therefore, he says all the laws that we're going to explain regarding these bans, these apply to the countries like Morocco, the Far East, those Far Eastern countries, those countries, the Muslim countries. But in our countries, Khalila, we don't put people, we don't excommunicate, but we need to know the laws. We have to know, and you have to know what's forbidden for us. We have to know these laws. So he says, and then he brings the pasuk from the Torah, where the source of the ability to put a person into, to ban a person, to put a person into to excommunicate this person. We need to know where do we get that power from? So he brings the pasuk from Shoftim, and that's the first thing. And he says part of the things that we do, part of the ban is that we say you can't eat with this guy who's under the ban. You can't drink with the guy who's under the ban. You can't stand within his dalanamot 6 to 8 feet. Social distancing.
But Rabbi, you have a case
It was bad news, right? He went off the derech. Could be, yeah. I mean, this is talking about in Europe. Yes, the Gemara talks about putting a person into ban. That's the halacha. But certain countries, when we're in exile, they don't give us that right to ban somebody. They told us, Morocco, they said you could do it, no problem. But from your place, they could do it, but not in other places, some other places. Right. And then the Torah writes, before you put a person in a ban, what do? You warn him. You warn him on a Monday. It says you warn him Monday, Thursday, Monday. You warn him, and they make a distinction between whether it's a financial issue. Let's say a person is not acting properly financially. You warn the guy, got to change how you're acting. Maybe his weights aren't honest or whatever. They identify what the sin is. You warn him. But if a person violates an isur, he says, let's say if a person is violating the Torah, not in money matters, let's say in other matters that are not financial matters. There are many mitzvahs in the Torah that have to do with finances, right? A person's machal Shabbat, let's say, or maybe whatever. There's certain things he says that you don't give him 3 warnings, you just give him one warning, and in excommunication, it's not less. It's a minimum of 30 days. It's a minimum of 30 days, and if it sounds like there are 2 types of excommunication, 2 different levels. One's called a nidui and one's called a cherem. One's a more serious, and then we have to see all the laws. One's a more serious ban, more restrictions on the guy. The cherem is the most restricting, and he says if he doesn't, we give him 30 days to shape up. 30 days to shape up. If he doesn't shape up after 30 days, we give him another 30 days of excommunication. We extend the ban another 30 days. If he doesn't change then he says we wait another 30 days, and then we put him at the cherem. So there's at a certain point it's gonna grow to the level of cherem, and he talks about different laws in the Holy Land. It's a certain amount of days, 30 days outside of Israel. There might be some things might be 7 days. They're all different laws that apply to these laws. And he says, you can't sit within Dalet Amot, except his wife and his children are permitted to be within his Dalet Amot. Some say the lower level is the lower level of communication. And some say any member of their house could also be, not just the wife and the children, there's other people that live in the house could also be with him, close to him, and that's the law. He says that's the main opinion. What? That's the mild one. Now he says this idea you can't be within Dalet Amot is whether he's in the house or in the synagogue. He can't sit next to him in the synagogue. What did he do? Oh, so one of the things that he did. So the Rambam says one of the cases the Rambam says is he didn't keep Yom Tov Sheni. The second day of Yom Tov outside of Israel, we have 2 days of Yom Tov. So I don't care about the second day of Yom Tov. Or Chas v'Shalom. Or he disgraced Torah scholars. Or he has this bad dog, a dangerous dog in his house. Dangerous ladder in his house. Prevents the community from doing a mitzvah. All different types of sins. It's very, we could go through them, but they're very fascinating. All different types of sins that are enumerated, certain types of sins that are enumerated, and those are some. Again, he was warned. He didn't wake up. He didn't change. We get serious with the guy. It's interesting. We're not hitting the guy, right? We put this. That's not. But he repents. He said, "Okay, I'll get rid of the ladder, the weak ladder. I'll stop disgracing Torah. I apologize." Second day of Yom Tov. We're talking. It's not his choice. We don't have choice to do sin. Mean to say, we're not allowed to sin. But if we're sinning and we are at the time when the community, when the courts, the Jewish courts have power, or the Jewish community has power, we got to make sure, because this guy who's sinning is not keeping, he's going to affect the community. If a guy doesn't care about Yom Tov Sheni, he drives his car on Yom Tov Sheni. So you know what's going to happen? People are going to not to respect it. So,
How come we don't apply these laws?
according to in Europe, in Russia did not allow you to do this, the country. But I don't know that today, we do find there is this concept that sometimes the Beis Din might put a person, there is a possibility, there might be courts that do people in Chayrim. Sometimes, I think even today, it might happen. I don't think it happens on often. In America, it's very rare that, I think the question is where this might come up more, sometimes if a person doesn't give a get to his wife, that's where you need to look into this. That if a person, when he is holding back a get from his wife, there might be rabbis that might want to put a guy in Chayrim for such a thing. That means when the marriage is over and there's nothing to talk about, and the Jewish court says he has to give the woman a get. The court ordered him to give a get, and he doesn't want to give the woman a get. So that might be a case that, I'm not saying that you have to look into it. There might be a case that you might hear of this concept of a cherem, or this type of, and when the person passes away, there's no eulogies for such a person.
We had a case like this in Morocco 50 years ago.
That what? Someone's a bad person.
Sure. He was also reading the Torah, but the guy started openly, he was married, old guy, but he was doing something bad with the Goya, so we decided to show not to accept it.
Right. So sometimes, you might not want to give him honors, might not want to accept them. But the question is, all the stringencies of these laws? It's a total encompassing many laws. Good morning, Yosef Atzadik. Okay, so that's a little bit about these laws. Morning. So, and how do you take it off? You say sharilach, machalach. You say you're permitted. Okay, there's a lot of laws on this. So it would seem that a chacham, an individual rabbi, has the power to do it. A court. Again, also we have to see under which circumstances the rabbi has. He says, we'd have to see. It sounds, Beis Din. Talks about Beis Din Beis Din has the power. Definitely, Beis Din has the power, and I think a person has the power. Chacham himself might also have the power, but for sure the court has the power. Beis Din, the Jewish court, could decide to put. It says Beis Din. There's four. The Gemara says in Brachot, there's 24 situations that the court would put a guy into this band. So if it's a shura court, all right, you have to see more about an individual, but the court for sure could put himself, could have the power. Any Jewish court. Okay, so that's a little bit about, so now let's get to our Gemara on Yud Aleph Amud Beis. Unless you want to hear all 24 things that a person go into Chayrim for. It's up to you. Mr. Haber, I'll give you the choice. You want to hear the 24 things, or you want to go further in the Gemara? Further in the Gemara? Or the 24 things? Let's do the 24 things. Okay. So let's see the 24 things that a person goes to Chayrim for. Goes excommunicated. So the Rambam is in the laws of Talmud Torah, I'm going to get the Rambam out right over here. Here are the 24 types of sins that a person could go to be excommunicated for. And that's a big lesson for us to recognize the seriousness of these offenses. I found it very fascinating. It's in Perek Zayin, Halacha Yud Aleph. So it says like this. Let's see the. And it's Perek Vav where he enumerates them. You see, the Rambam says that a Rav, like a rabbi sounds like he has the power to put someone, even not a court, because the Rambam mentions about a Rav, a rabbi that puts someone into excommunication because, let's say, someone disgraced the rabbi and the rabbi excommunicated the guy out with the Hebrew. So he talks about the rabbi, not even as a court, has the power. Okay, so the Rambam says like this. The first one on the list, and this person that could be excommunicated, good morning, Sally, is both either a man or a woman. Sometimes they would put this person into excommunication. A woman could also be subject to this ban, just like a man can be subject to this ban. We're talking about what we learned in the Gemara, that there are certain things that we had, that a person could be placed into excommunication, into nidui. Like we learned about Yehuda said about himself that I will be excommunicated. Remember, Jake? If I don't bring back Binyamin. But there are 24 things the Rambam says. Number one on the list is someone who disgraces a chacham, even after the chacham passed away. You know, there's a famous story about Moshe Feinstein that by his funeral or something in Israel, and somebody said, you know, why are people making such a big deal about the rabbi? And he spoke not with respect about Rabbi Feinstein. Then he saw in his life that he had a lot of problems afterwards. And I mean, if you disgrace a rabbi, even after the rabbi passes away, he's subject to be excommunicated. If you go ahead and you say, you know, well, if you talk about a chacham who passed away, you say, yeah, he's you know, whatever, something not proper, he could be excommunicated. And again, you would put this guy in this ban only after he was warned. Just to bring everybody up to date, welcome, Mr. Feldman. We're talking about there are 24 sins, offenses that a person might do that the court would put the person into excommunication. When we had power of doing that, maybe depending on which country we saw, in Russia in 1900, you could not put a guy into excommunication. The Tsar did not let. But here, now, the Rambam says, number one, if you disgrace the rabbi, even after the rabbi passed away, if you disgrace him and you were warned and you don't change, you're subject to excommunication. Case two, if the court has a messenger of the court and you disgrace the messenger of the court sends a messenger, or whether he sends the messenger to you or whether you just disgrace that messenger of the court, you're subject to the ban. If you call your friend an eved, a slave, you're being very negative about it. Interesting, just calling your friend and it's a Gemara in Kedushin. You're very, sounds like you're being very disrespectful to another person, and you are warned, and you keep on calling him a slave, he's subject to the ban. If someone makes light of any rabbinic law, certainly if he makes light of any Torah law, but a person says, I don't care if it's rabbinic. It's only Rabbanan. I don't follow Rabbanan. You ever hear of such craziness? But there's such a possibility. People have such craziness, right? And a person says, I don't care about a Torah law. He's being not respectful. That's another case to be subject to the ban. The court tells you I'm sending it, summons you to Jewish court, and you don't show up to court. You violate they told you have to come to court. Why is the court summon you? Because you have to come to court. You did something whatever it is, whether you're guilty, innocent, we tell you to come, and you disregard the invitation. It's called a hazmana. The court sent a hazmana, and you don't come to court. You don't respect the court. I said we send an invitation. You have to come to court. You don't come to court, right? You know what happens? We are subject to, and you were warned, subject to the ban. The court gave you a ruling, and you're not following the ruling. You have to pay. You lost the case. You have to pay the money, and you're not following. So you're subject to be banned. If you have in your possession something that's damaging, you have a bad dog, a violent dog in your possession, or you have in your possession what would you call a violent dog today? Is a German Shepherd a violent dog? Or it depends if it's trained or not. Bulldog is dangerous. So if you have a bulldog in your house and you're warned and you don't get rid of it, subject to be.
Rottweiler.
What do you say, Yosef?
Rottweiler or Pitbull.
Pitbull, okay. Pitbull, okay, very good. Or you have a bad ladder in your house. And someone could fall off the ladder, whether it's a worker or a member of the family. And we warn you, get rid of that ladder. You got to fix that ladder, and you don't listen. And you're holding something in your property. How do you like that, Jake? We subject the guy to a ban until he's subject to this, possibly. We might excommunicate the guy. Now, if somebody goes to court and he testifies in a non-Jewish court regarding a Jew, and as a result of his testimony, the court took out money from that Jew, which was not according to Jewish law. Now, we can't go to non-Jewish court against a Jew. We can't go against a Jew to a non-Jewish court, even if they'll follow the Jewish law. But this is the case that he's talking about. He would have to pay the money, and we put him in excommunication until he pays the money that he caused the Jew to lose in the non-Jewish court. Another one he says, I'm skipping one of them. He says someone who does not desecrates Yom Tov Sheni, the second day of Yom Tov. Even though it's a minhag, if he goes ahead and he desecrates it, he's subject to this excommunication.
Rabbi,
yes.
Can we discuss about the second one, that the court, a non-Jew court?
Yes, the Torah says, the Torah says that you have to go to, when Jews deal with Jews, you have to go to Jewish court. You can't go to secular court against a fellow Jew. Sometimes the Jewish court, you have to get permission from a Jewish court to go to a secular court against a fellow Jew. You have to have something called heter bezin. You have to have you have to go to the Jewish court and tell them your situation. And if the court would allow you to go to the non-Jewish court, then you're allowed to. But if the Jewish court does not give you an allowance, you're not allowed to take another Jew to court. All this idea of Jews suing another Jew, and also people have to know, if you're suing one Jewish company suing another Jewish company, I don't see. You have to know if you who says you have any allowance to do such a thing, because that you go to secular court, you're doing these type of things. You have to talk to a posek. You have to talk to a posek, person who's someone who's very fluent in all the halachot before you do any such things of a Jew suing another Jew.
What if the Jew that's suing another Jew, and the other Jew is not really following any halachot, and he doesn't want to come to the Jewish court?
So that's the case that the Jewish court would would give you permission most probably. But even then, even that would be another question. Would be even in a case that you're dealing with a non-religious Jew and he's not going to come to Jewish court, and therefore as a result of that, the Jewish court will give you most probably an allowance. You have to ask permission to go to the non-Jewish court. But I have a different question. If according to Jewish law, the concept of suing, we don't find the idea that if someone caused a certain damage, you could sue for $1 million in Jewish law. We don't find such a concept. In Jewish law, do we find such a thing of suing? Besides the thing of if someone caused you damage, you have to get back to what they damaged to you. We find sometimes if a guy stole and he's caught, there's something called kefel. Sometimes you can pay double the amount, but we don't find this idea. And that's only when the court has the power to impose a fine. Today, our courts don't have the power to impose kefel, to impose a double. We can say you have to pay the loss that you caused. So this idea of suing somebody, that what? But you sue a guy for $1 million, but it's not because it's $1 million of damage necessarily. The suing period for $1 million because of some other no, it's not. It's always the value that the $1 million is the true value. The guy the hot coffee, the guy in the car with the coffee that spilled on him. How many? He got millions of dollars. Was it millions of dollars of medical damage? No. But we're not going to give the guy millions of dollars. We don't feel that it's a value of millions of dollars. We feel maybe the medical expenses we have, but not this millions of dollars. What? So, yeah, but they make up a number, right? Exactly. But it's not, a lot of, we all know that with the lawyers today, what they come up with, that it's not exactly the loss that's incurred. So I'm saying that concept now. Yeah, but what they call down, what you could sue for today, Mr. Feldman, am I correct? Some of the lawsuits are crazy, the numbers are crazy, right? Is it really? It's really okay, but I'm just saying. My point I'm saying is I'm bringing up a point to the crowd, and we're going to end with this point. That even when you have a right to take him to a non-Jewish court, even if the court gives you allowance, I think you need to ask the rabbi who gave you the permission to take him to the non-Jewish court, and how much am I allowed to go after him in the non-Jewish court? Meaning, is my allowance in the non-Jewish court to go after the Jew only up to what's normal and what I would be able to get in a Jewish court? Or once I have an allowance to go to non-Jewish court, does that mean I could go up and get from him money, which I would not be entitled in a Jewish court? That's what I'm bringing to your attention. And I want to wish everyone, we have to go upstairs to pray. I want to thank everybody for joining, and have a great day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. We didn't finish all 24, Mr. A, but we got through some of them. Thank you, Yosef.
Rabbi,
Yes.
do you need a lawyer for the Jewish court?
They don't need, they usually, I don't think they need, but usually sometimes they hire somebody. Best thing is never to go to court, not to have anything to go to court. Stay out of court. That's it, Mr. Haber, am I right? Best thing is stay out of Jewish courts, stay out of all courts.
Do we have a Jewish court out of Israel?
Yeah, we have Jewish courts in in America they have Jewish courts also, yes.
Okay.
The different court systems. Some people, each person appoints a rabbi, and then they both together agree on a third rabbi. Sometimes there's already a fixed 3 rabbis. They can pray upstairs. Yeah.
In America, does this system work? I think it only works in a
Yeah.
But
Talking
not only
about
the
now.
even
Talk about
in the modern Orthodox community,
doing
there are
for
certain
money.
there's the RCA, there's
yeah,
certain,
but people don't belong to community.
okay, we have, Everyone needs, okay, but there are some, just some general thoughts. Have a good day, Yosef. People have some
Thank you.
general, thank you, Yosef.